Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to MCP Night. My name is Michael Grinich. I'm the founder of WorkOS, and we are so excited to be back here at the Regency Ballroom for the fourth MCP Night. MCP Night started off as an experiment a little over a year ago. I had been going to different types of meetups in San Francisco, seeing what people were building after work, and this MCP thing kept coming up again and again. People were showing demo apps, ways that they were extending their own LLMs. And so we said, why don't we throw an event about this? Why don't we actually kind of build like a super meetup around this? So we rented out this space called the Exploratorium, if any of you have been there, or some of you maybe were at the first MCP night. And we thought we would have maybe, 50 to 60 people or something like that come. And actually, we ended up having over 250 people show up. There was a line down the block, and it was pretty clear that this was something different, something new, and a big shift was happening in the world of technology. Fast forward to today, same thing, hundreds and hundreds of people coming out. And what's different today is this small thing, agents. So in the last 6 months, really over the last year, but the last 6 months in particular, agentic software has changed the way that we work. It's changing the products that we're building, and we think it's going to change the world. And so tonight at MCP Night, we're doing a very special thing. We're calling this agent mode, and we're going to be talking about the future of software as it relates to agents and some stuff that we've been building at WorkOS around authentication for agents. So I'm really excited to talk about that in a bit. Quick overview of tonight's program. First, we're going to start talking about Agent Auth, which I mentioned. Then we'll move into a section of lightning demos. These are one of our favorite things about MCP Night, is to bring people from the community working really at the bleeding edge of building new apps and services to show live demos to you about things that they've been making. We'll follow that with a panel, some folks that have been building for actually a few years around AI and going deep on agentic software and tools and transformation. And then last, but not least, we'll follow it up with an after party for all of you right downstairs. Please stick around for that. It's going to be great. All right, let's talk about Agent Auth. So to talk about Agent Auth, I want to go back in time a little bit and talk about the evolution of coding with agents. You know, if you went back like a year, maybe a year and change ago, this is kind of how we were writing code. You would prompt the system, and then it would spit out some code. And you would prompt it again, and it would spit out some more code. You'd prompt it again, it'd spit out some more code. You were very much the human in the loop. And this way of coding was kind of like really advanced autocomplete. If you've ever used, back in the day, something like IntelliSense, where it could figure out method names and function calls and stuff, this was like even more intelligent autocomplete. But ultimately, you were still in the loop as a human. You needed to steer the AI. It wasn't really agentic at that point. It certainly wasn't autonomous. You would prompt, you get a change, you review it, and repeat. But something changed as the models got better and better. Eventually, you could one-shot entire features. You could drive your prompt in a way that the agent could run for a longer period of time, maybe several minutes, or in some cases, even several hours. And you could string these things together. You could decompose your problem into a bunch of small things and have the agent spin on it again and again and again, and actually have something that could run maybe for multiple hours and spit out an entire app. And this is truly the beginning of long-running agents. This ability to not just have kind of advanced autocomplete for certain functions, but build out whole capabilities. This is quite profound. I think this is something that we were all experimenting with maybe last year, if those of you that remember like Ralph loops at that time. But this was, I think, a pivotal turning moment. Of course, work is busy, so not a lot of people have that much time to experiment with this. So over the holiday break, when people actually could take time away from work, and also some of these even more advanced models came out, people started running agents in parallel. And they started finding that they could have multiple agents work together to collaborate on building systems. And this, again, is a giant leap forward in how software has been written. I think it's fair to say that software engineering has changed more in the last 4 months than it has over the last 40 years. No longer are we writing code by hand. No longer are we debugging things by hand. We are masters of the prompt. It's a man-machine symbiosis in actually how we build things. And this is a huge, huge upset in the way that engineering teams are structured, in the way that teams operate, in the way that we build stuff. It's really like, hard to overemphasize actually how big of a shift this has been. It's completely changed the software development lifecycle. And you've seen companies actually start adopting this way of working for their internal engineering teams. A few months ago, Ramp released a blog post about something they built called Inspect, which is a fully end-to-end agentic coding experience. You don't write code with Inspect. You just prompt. You can have multiple chats. It's collaborative. And you can automatically test and deploy stuff into production through Inspect. And today, I believe at Ramp, the majority of their PRs are generated by Inspect. Humans are still steering it, but agents are the ones creating it. Stripe built this as well. They have a project called Stripe Minions, kind of named after the cute, little cartoon guys. And what minions are is kind of what you'd imagine. They go off and do your bidding. You can spin them up to go build different aspects of your project. It's a full one-shot, end-to-end coding agent system. And I think at Stripe, this has over 1,000 merged PRs every week, just to give a sense of scale. At WorkOS, we've been building this too. We call ours Horizon. Oops. Horizon. Horizon's our internal autonomous code factory. So this responds to events from Slack. You can tag it in. You can add it to a linear ticket. You can actually have it alert off of something from like an exception that's been thrown, like a Sentry error or a slow database query. And Horizon goes and figures out actually how to open a PR, how to make those changes, how to debug things. It's connected to all of our systems. It has context. And it's kind of like a robotic coworker that's able to write code with us. So no longer are these things just driving code. They're actually solving problems. And I think this shift is pretty analogous to what's happened with cars. So we've had cruise control for a while. We've had things like lane assist. A modern car like this has a bunch of smart features to help you drive and reduce the workload. But it still has a steering wheel. And that's kind of the human in the loop, the IDE. Still you being the person writing and reviewing code. With these agentic coding systems, it's like going full autonomous. There's no steering wheel. There's no controls. You just get in and tell it where you want to go and take a nap and wake up and you're there. You don't need an IDE. Software engineering is becoming autonomous, and it's due to these models getting better, these long-running agentic systems being able to break down complex tasks and projects and provide actually concrete, unique solutions. So what's required for this? What actually is needed for people to build these agentic systems? Well, the first thing is you need a runtime. You need somewhere that the agent can actually execute. It has to be secure. You need permissions, isolation, and scoped credentials. Second, you need tools. Stuff like GitHub, access to CI, observability, databases, feature flags, issue trackers. You need the ability to connect to services and change things and get context in. Third, you need even more context. So the tools bring some context in, but you need knowledge about the project, the wide code base, stuff like product requirements, things that might be in Notion or in your Confluence or other wiki systems. You might even bring in team conversations. Companies that have been operating in a remote way, like WorkOS, we have years and years and years of conversations between engineers, product requirement documents that we've written, transcripts from calls. We pipe all of that stuff in. Fourth, you need feedback loops. So it's not enough for the agent just to be able to write the code. It actually has to be able to test it. It has to be able to build stuff, check the results, review it, and actually verify stuff. And then last but not least, of course, you need a way for a human to review this. You're not just fully flowing the agentic coding straight into production today. Humans are involved, but we're moving up the stack. From writing each line of code to reviewing the kind of wider intent and reviewing the trade-offs and the design decisions, kind of like what a principal engineer would be doing. These are kind of the necessary pieces to building one of these agentic coding systems, supporting agents. A lot of people describe these things together, plus the kind of runtime around it, as the harness. The harness meaning the thing that you put around the language model to actually make it effective. And I think a good metaphor for this kind of extending the car analogy, is like the engine is your LLM. The engine is the model you're getting from one of the foundational labs. This is your Opus 4.7 or your Codex 5.5 or something. And what this is actually letting you do to put all this stuff around it is to make it effective, to actually turn it into something that you can drive, something that actually can take you places, connect it to the ground. It's the wheels, the chassis, the body, the fuel, everything that's needed to let that engine actually run and take you somewhere. And what turns out to be true is every time these models change, we have to kind of rebuild the harnesses. As model capabilities change, the way that we work with them also has to change. It's kind of like with a new engine, you need a new chassis. You can't just drop it into an existing system. And over the last 6 months, you can tell as the models have gotten better and better, the harnesses have needed to get better, and people switch between kind of the harness model combination between all of these. For agentic apps, for agentic coding systems, for stuff like Horizon, the LLM is not really the product. Like, it's really the harness, the environment, that feedback loop. That's the product. That's the whole thing together. That's needed for this stuff to be effective. And if you can do that, you have a fully running car. We built this at WorkOS with Horizon because really we just couldn't wait for the future. I remember one of our engineers was like, isn't someone going to build a company around this? And can we just buy it? And that's true. There's a lot of folks that are working on it. But I think there's a lot of value in trying to be at the bleeding edge and take it even a step further. And so we've been investing a ton in this and exploring it. And today it powers a lot of actually our own internal engineering and PRs. Horizon ships PRs for us. The agents within it are autonomous. And what this means is that everybody at WorkOS can code. Everybody can build things and debug things. Now, these agentic systems that are autonomous, they have these emergent behaviors when you're building stuff, not just for writing code, but they're actually also good at picking their stack. And this is a lot of what I want to talk about today in terms of like where the software industry is going. As agents get smarter, they can make even more decisions. So you spin up an agent, you say, hey, I need to build this app that has these capabilities, here's my prompt. And the agent says, certainly, I'll get to work on it. And as I go through this, okay, let me pick a database, and let me pick a framework to use, and let me pick somewhere to deploy it. Let me pick a solution for all these different things. And suddenly your agent is determining your stack. And this is a huge thing. In the past, agents wouldn't do this. They would only work within an existing code base. But now agents will actually make the decision, not just of how the software is architected, but what platforms it's built on top of. They choose a database, they choose an email vendor, they choose hosting, observability, and even choosing what to use for auth. And as they make these selections, they kind of reinforce. As agents get better and better at using these things, the things that they pick tend to get better documentation and experiences for them, and then these services grow. As software becomes majority built by AI, this means that you need to think about agents as consumers for your product. Agents are kind of the new users that you're going to have within your app. And this is a pretty enormous shift that I think is happening kind of right under our eyes right now. My friend Braylon tweeted this: if your product cannot connect to my agent in some way, I'm 1,000% less likely to use it. No way I'm going to use it. And this is even more true for agents. If an agent can't connect to your product, it's kind of dead in the water. You'll only be able to sell it to those, like legacy, archaic users, the human, person. So we used to talk about developer experience, building things for people, creating new SDKs, and creating delightful products. And Y Combinator has this line that they say, it makes something people want, which is really encapsulates kind of the early stages of a startup, like make something people want. And I think it's actually time to revise this a little bit. And that going forward, this is going to be maybe necessary. People need to want what you're building, but it's not sufficient. And you'll also need to be able to make something agents want. You need to make something agents want for your product to grow. And in fact, the agent users might be more valuable than the human users, which sounds kind of crazy right now, but we can spawn agents faster. There's more of them. These systems grow faster. What happened with agentic coding that I talked about a few minutes ago, I think is going to happen everywhere, in every industry. It's going to happen in marketing, sales, finance, legal. It's going to happen in every single domain of tools. These agentic systems will be able to go out and pick whatever systems and infrastructure. They'll be able to go reserve hotels for you and book flights and many, many other things. And the systems that provide capabilities to agents are the ones that will win in that new economy. We have a small set of humans today, but there's going to be even more agents in the future. And right now, they're kind of stuck. If you think about the web era of selling to people, maybe 20 years ago or so, 30 years ago, we then had mobile, and that unlocked more. Agents are on a different scale, and they're just waiting for you to open your door to them for business. So this all sounds great, I think, and hopefully I've convinced you that this is like a big sea change happening, and there's a big opportunity here for you all to build new products for agents. But there's a problem. Of course, there's MCP, and there's different protocols for connecting to agentic systems. There's harnesses out there. There's different models. There's different sandbox providers. There's systems that do memory. There's systems that do all these different things. But there's something that we found that's missing around this. And it's pretty simple. And it's kind of crazy that it's missing. And that is agentic registration. This is a missing primitive right now for agents. How do you actually let an agent sign up for your stuff? Most of the automated services on the web, or the login pages on the web, they're designed to block automated behavior. Agents really can't get through them. They get confused. It's not as simple as just a email and password field. Agents might not have an email address. They might not have a password manager. They might be blocked for their IP bot type of behavior within these sites. And so we've spent decades trying to limit the amount of automated behavior on the web. And suddenly now we have the opposite problem, where we want to let the automated stuff in. Agentic registration is pretty different than human registration. Today's sign-up flow, it assumes that a human can read your landing page, that a human can fill out a form, that they can solve this CAPTCHA, that they can do all this stuff, that they can verify their email address. This is decades of what we've built up around. And agents are totally different. Agent registration needs the ability to be discovered, needs automated discovery and capability declaration. What can this thing do? It needs to be able to provide intent when something is registering, and a bunch of other things, risk assessment, identity verification, delegation. We're here at MCP Night. I'm probably a bigger MCP stan than anybody. And I'm sad to say that actually MCP is not enough for this. MCP is great. It's a great way for exchanging context, calling tools, agents interfacing with other agents, users interfacing with agents, but it's not enough. The MCP authentication layer does not provide this. It requires a human to be in the loop through the OAuth flow. We talked about that at previous events. You still have to consent to connect it to your systems. We need something that's actually automated with this. We need something different. We need something built first and foremost on primitives for agents. So we've been working on this for the last few months. We've really been thinking about it for probably over a year, and going back and forth on different designs and trying to figure out something that's the simplest way that we can start to introduce this to the world so people can start building on top of it. So today, we're really, really excited to showcase this to you, and we're calling it auth.md. So what is auth.md? Well, auth.md is a system. It's really kind of a spec. It's not a standard. It's not something ratified by the IETF. Please don't come with your pitchforks and torches for me. It's not a standard. It's just a set of ideas and a set of principles that allows you to take your application and expose it to agents, to allow agents to come register for it, to sign up and use your app, use your service. AuthMD tells agents how they can become legitimate users in your system, not get flagged as spam, not be like fake humans that are signing up, not impersonate people, but actually register as an agentic user. And the goal here is to give these service providers, you, building apps, an agent-native sign-up experience that's built on existing standards instead of inventing some new religion or some new crazy doctrine. The spec is really short. There's a lot of stuff that it doesn't handle and a lot of stuff that we're opening up as extensions that you could add to it later. The problem this is really just trying to solve is how an agent can sign up for your service get a token and actually start using it. And that developer on the other side, or the agent, maybe that's autonomous running, can just get back to work, building their app and shipping their product. What does auth.md do? What can it answer? Well, it can say, what does the service do? It can tell an agent how to register. It can say what identity proofs are accepted. How can an agent prove that it is who it says it is? What auth flows are supported? There's different ways of actually authenticating. What scopes and entitlements that exist? That's kind of like permissions or capabilities. And what free tier constraints apply? So, as an agent signs up, what does it need to do before what can it do before it pays? What's the free kind of gated experience? And last but not least, how does a human then, or an organization, claim the account? If it starts off with an agent, how can the agent pass it off to the person or the organization or the team that's using it? So we've built kind of the initial version of this, and we've been working on it with some partners. And for the very first time, we're really excited to show it to you. And in true WorkOS fashion, we are going to do this as a live demo. What do you think? Well, please keep that applause going and give a very, very, very warm welcome to Madison from WorkOS to show you the very first version of Agent MD.
Hi, everybody. I'm an engineer on the WorkOS AuthKit team, and I'm excited to talk to you about what we've been thinking for agentic registration. The idea is that agents should be able to sign up for services on behalf of users without taking you out of your agent context. So what I have set up here is a harness with Acme Agent. You can imagine that this is an agent provider with an identity, so your Cloud Code, Codex, Cursor style agent. And I'm authenticated. I've device authed into this as Madison at workos.bot, and it knows who I am. I have a session. The agent is asking if I want to keep working on my Svelte app. I have been working on a personal website that I'm pretty excited about. It talks a little bit about me and my hobbies, has a guest book and a web ring, and I've been trying to send this to my friends, but this localhost URL is not working. Let's see if the agent can help. Okay, the agent's telling me that localhost only works on my machine, and that if I want to share it with my friends, I have to deploy it somewhere. It's also letting me know that there are some providers for deployments where it can do all the work for me. It can create an account, give me an API key, and do all the work. That sounds great. I don't want to do any of that. Okay, so now it's looking for a deploy provider that supports Agent Auth. You can look, it's looking at Stratus/authmd, doesn't exist. Helio deploy /authmd doesn't exist, but Cloudflare does have an authmd file. So it knows that Cloudflare supports agent registration, and it can set this up for me. That is awesome. I've heard of Cloudflare. I want to use that. And now it's confirming that I want to use my Acme identity, Madison at workos.bot, to register for a Cloudflare account. And I do want to do that. And what it's doing now is it's taking my Acme session and converting it into what's called an ID JAG. It stands for Identity Assertion JWT Authorization Grant. And Cloudflare trusts Acme. It knows that we take email verification very seriously because we have tokens to protect. So it is OK with creating an account based on that ID JAG, and it's returning an API token and an account ID and setting it up in the environment. So I'm all set up to use the Wrangler CLI, and it has created a subdomain for me where I can deploy. It's also letting me know that, there need to be a few small changes to my app in order for it to work well with Cloudflare. So it's swapping out the default adapter for the Cloudflare adapter to make sure that the bundle works seamlessly with Cloudflare. And I'm all set up. But I am getting cold feet a little bit. I remember websites from this period being a little bit more exciting than the one that I've put together. So I'm going to ask it for some retro inspo for a redesign. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to use Firecrawl, which is excellent at scraping the web and turning unstructured data into JSON. And it's going to do the same thing that we did to set up the Cloudflare account. It's asking if I want to do this with my Acme identity, and I do. It's issuing a new ID jag specific to Firecrawl, sending that to them, and setting up a new account. And it's returning an API key that we can use to hit up the Firecrawl API. And so now it is looking at the Web Design Museum for some inspiration. We've given it a prompt asking it to pull out some personal homepages with a specific aesthetic, and we want to return some fields about this, like key elements, color palette, that sort of thing. And when it's done scraping the collections, it's going to coalesce those into some options that we can choose from to reskin the site. So that's done. It's scraped the 5 sites, it's coalescing the results, and it's going to present me with 3 options that we can choose from for our redesign. Okay, we have option 1, Y2K. Option 2, bad and ugly. Option 3, pixel art. Clap if you want option 1. Okay. Option 2? Option 3? All right. I think pixel art actually beat out bad and ugly by a hair. So let's do pixel art. And while this is redesigning things, we did talk a bit about ID jag. It sounds really obscure. It's an existing spec, and I just wanted to show you what an ID jag actually looks like. So I saved the one that we sent to Cloudflare, and we're going to decode it. And it's just a JWT. It has a specific header that identifies that it's an ID jag, and then it has fields about who I am, that my email has been verified. If Cloudflare got an ID jag that said that the email was verified was false, it wouldn't want to issue a new account for me. The trust relationship really is this email verified field. It includes the issuer, which is the Acme bot, and the audience, which is Cloudflare. That's it. That's all Cloudflare needs in order to set up a new account for us. If we go back here, this should be wrapping up any minute now. Awesome. And now that it's done reskinning, it's going to use the Wrangler CLI to deploy the app to our subdomain that we provisioned at the beginning. And that's done, and it has a link for us. And all right, pixel art. So this is live on Cloudflare. I was able to do this without ever leaving my terminal, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you to our partners at Cloudflare and Firecrawl for setting this up in their products so that we could show it to you. Thank you to the team at WorkOS for shipping this with me, and thank you to all of you for checking it out.
Keep it going for Madison. First live demo of the night. So cool. It's like magic. That actually works. We've been building that with both Cloudflare and Firecrawl for the last few weeks. When we reached out to them and we were like, hey, we have this kind of crazy idea, engineers at both of those companies were like, we are so down. Let's build this together. This is what you just saw. This is how auth.md works. Oops. I'm clicker happy, I think. There we go. Here's how it works. So what you saw, whoa. Hold on there, partner. Pew. All right, nobody sneeze. You have your coding harness. In that example, it was Pi. And underneath that, of course, it has the LLM, it has memory. And the example that Madison walked through there was interactive, right? Because she was demoing it and talking with us and showing it. But you can imagine your harness could just go do this on its own. It was just asking her for consent. It was just saying, do you want to sign up for Cloudflare or not? But you could definitely instruct your coding agent to say, go pick a bunch of stuff. Go pick the best things that are out there and just use those. Behind the coding harness, the coding agent, is a backing identity service. And in this example, that was actually the WorkOS.bot example. But that can be anything in the auth.md spec. It can be an identity service like WorkOS. It could be your existing identity system. This is very flexible. You can go build it yourself. And it can actually even be anonymous. So this is something, as you go look at the docs later, you can allow your service to have anonymous signups for agents and then have them claimed by people later. And obviously, you need to be careful with that, but it's really, really, really powerful for services on the web. The flow is that the agent figures out what services are available to it through discovery. There's that standard /auth.md endpoint. You can also list it in your lms.txt or your docs file. The agent will send that IDJAG file, that IDJAG assertion, really that token, and it receives back an access token. And now that access token is just your normal access token that you can have. After that, the agent can just hit your normal API, work with MCP, do whatever it wants. So this spec is really pretty tight. It's actually just that identity presentation, the IDJAG exchange, and the token resolution. It doesn't do a lot of crazy stuff around permissions. It doesn't do everything under the sun. You don't have to use it for your agent runtime. You don't have to use it for other credentials. It just solves that really first kind of hairy problem around agent registration. And I think this is really important to be an open spec for the web. I think this is so important for agents to be able to go sign up for services and go interact, that this shouldn't be a single company owning it. It shouldn't be WorkOS owning it. It shouldn't be gated behind something else. It shouldn't be Cloudflare owning it. It should be something that everybody should be able to implement and build on top of for your own apps and services. Our hope is that this actually opens your doors to agent users. You can allow them to come register, allow them to come sign up, allow them to actually deploy things in user service. And the end state of this, I think, is agents will also be able to pay. They'll actually be able to exchange value. Take my money, the agent says. And this will be the beginning, really, of this new kind of agent economy. Agents will be able to pay for services, use things, and actually transact on the web. But I think we need to fix the registration problem first. Payments come later. It's just like any app you would build today, right? You're not going to put a credit card form on your sign-up page. Why should that be the case for agents? They should be able to register first and then pay later. But we're very excited about extending it to this. At WorkOS, we've spent many years talking about enterprise ready. If you go to our homepage, it says, your app enterprise ready. And what that really means is helping you as developers take whatever you've built, whatever SaaS products, and go sell it to bigger and bigger customers. Go up market, land your biggest deal, work with the biggest companies in the world, and do it securely. And I think agent ready is actually the next enterprise ready. In a lot of ways, we're just doing the same thing with agents that we've been doing with the enterprise, trying to democratize access to it and make it possible for any of them to use your stuff. The thing is, every company will have agents. And they'll have more agents than people, and the agents don't sleep, they don't get tired, they work 24/7, trying to solve problems. The world will really be run by agents. And so, you need to build for them. And if this sounds too far out, if this sounds kind of crazy, or this is like, subculture within Silicon Valley, that's like a very far future, it might be a little bit, but I want to show you this tweet from Mark Benioff. And Mark Benioff is the founder and CEO of Salesforce. And yes, it's that Salesforce, the one with the big building, the biggest building in San Francisco. Salesforce is not a new company. They've been around for decades. They're one of the world's largest software companies. In many ways, they're considered a legacy player. But they're not sleeping on this, on agents. Salesforce is making their entire service agent ready. They said, our API, yikes, got the fastest thumbs in the West. Our API is the UI. The entire Salesforce, Agentforce, and Slack platforms are now exposed as APIs, MCP, and CLI. That's crazy. They sell their dashboard. The UI is the thing that everyone uses. They make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year on this. And yet, Mark is saying, that doesn't matter anymore. The API is what matters. This is the future of Agent Ready. This is the future of actually agents interfacing with services. This isn't just a threat to the Salesforce business. This isn't defensive. They see it as their biggest opportunity, their biggest growth dimension, the way that even more people can come use Salesforce and build on top of it. And the same is true for all of your products and all of your apps. So this is auth.md. We're launching a new site on this today. It's available right now. Inside of it, it has docs, it has getting started guides, it has tutorials for how to implement it, whether you want to be like a coding agent or a service provider, one or the other. You can either present the identity or receive the identity. It's really easy to integrate. We've made it super, super easy. Your agent can go integrate it. How meta is that? It allows you to take your app and add these agent-native features. And we're layering in things like permissions, and even down the line, human verification into it for the transfer. But the first step around registration, we think we have a pretty good solution for it. It's an open spec. Anybody can implement it. You just have to host your own auth.md file. And if you happen to be using our products, if you're using WorkOS AuthKit, you can turn this on with just one click. You just turn it on, and you can have agents start signing up for your service. Pretty cool. So that's auth.md. Thanks. We're super excited about this. We can already tell something like this is going to be big. Either us or somebody else. We wanted to kickstart it and get feedback from all of you. So my homework to all of you after tonight's event, go home, check this out, build something with it, and send me an email about it. DM me on Twitter, scream it from the top of the mountaintops, come by our office, come to a meetup, show us what you're actually building with it. We want all of you to be able to give feedback on it. This is not just a one-way directional presentation. We want to hear from you. All right, well, that's not all we have tonight at this program. Now we're going to transition into some lightning demos. And what we've tried to do is pick some people who have been building really at the bleeding edge of agentic services, building products for agents and using agents to create brand new experiences. And so I'm super excited to bring to the stage someone who's a brand new founder of a new company. I believe that's like maybe 2 months old. Please welcome Karen from Agent Card to talk about debit cards for AI agents. Big round of applause.
Hi. Yes. Hi. How is everybody? Okay, I'm here to talk about Agent Card. Agent Card, as you can tell, is a debit card for AI agents. You may be wondering, why would I want to do that? And to answer that question, I'll start by asking, how many of you are using OpenClaw or something like that? Okay. And how many of you have tried to buy something with OpenClaw? Okay. So when you try to buy things with your agent, there are many issues with that. And number one is that it's not safe to share your credit card with your agent. What we basically created is a very simple interface that you can use and your agent can use to issue one-time cards that are safe and very easy to use that you can start using right now, actually, if you go into our website, agentcard.sh. What I'm going to show you next is how you can create a card. And we will also try to buy something, which may or may not work. Okay, so here I'm in my OpenCloud terminal, and I've already, of course, I have my Agent Card account here and my MCP server connected, so I'm just going to create a card. And what it's going to do is talk to our MCP server, and it's asking me what the limit should be. So I'm going to say, I'm going to choose something else, like maybe $1. And a couple seconds later, it's going to ask for my approval. You may be wondering, why is it asking for your approval if you just said, like, create the card? And that's because this flow, it has been started by me, but could have been started by your agent directly. So before card creation, you as a human need to approve card creation. So I'm going to say yes. And if everything works fine, we should see the card any second now. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to say, okay, show me the card. And this is not being live streamed, so people online are not going to be able to steal the card, but you can if you want. It's going to ask for my approval. I'm going to say yes. And now it's going to show us the real card. Great, there it is. Okay. So this is a one-time card, which means that after first use, it's going to get destroyed, which means that it's very safe to use. You can share this card with OpenClaw, and it's fine. It's fine if the LLM sees it. There's nothing to worry about there. I don't know if I have enough time to buy something, but we're going to try. Okay. So I'm going to try to pay for this OpenAI subscription. So I'm going to say, open this in a browser and pay for it. So basically, the agent card MCP has a tool that can recognize URLs and is able to complete a transaction like this. It's able to buy things for you. So it's opening a browser, and it should now open the URL. And what it's going to do, it's detect on the screen how much it needs to pay for, and it's going to create a one-time card for that amount. So in this case, it's going to be a card for $8. It's asking again for my authorization. I'm going to say yes. And if I can do it in 8 seconds, it would be amazing. Let's see if that works. Yes, you have my approval. And it's now here on the browser. We can see the cursor. And any second now, it should be able to complete this checkout. It's very hard to do a live demo of something in Claude. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay. So that's Agent Card for you all. You can go ahead and create an account on Agent Card. Try to buy things with your agents. It's all of us on this audience, the ones who are building the tools for the future. So go ahead and do crazy things with your agents. Thank you very much.
Keep it going for Karen. Wow. I think I was 16 when I got my first debit card. And now we're just giving them to agents like that. Would you trust Sonnet with an agent? What do you think? Or Open? Probably. Haiku? Maybe not. Yeah, there we go. Also, pretty incredible doing a live demo with Claude these days with their 0 nines of uptime, I think they have. Is anybody from Anthropic here? Probably not. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on. For a second demo, please give a super warm welcome to Adi. He's going to be showing you email as an identity layer for agents, how we give email to agents. Round of applause, please.
Cool, cool. How's it going, guys? My name is Adi, and I am one of the co-founders of Agent Mail. It is the inbox API to give to your OpenClaw, to your Hermes, to your Claude Code, to your Codex, to any single AI agent you build. Now, I put my landing page up there because at first glance, it seems like this new idea, and we seem like a new company. Email inboxes for AI agents, but I hate to break it to you, I'm kind of an unk in this space. I've been thinking about this since November 2024, and being very, very honest with you, we didn't have much traction until earlier this year when a lobster-themed harness sort of took over the world out of nowhere. And amid all the signups, amid everyone saying, okay, it's very obvious to me why an agent needs its own email inbox, I kept getting one criticism that just kept getting on my nerves. And I am going to show you that tweet right now. I came across Agent Mail, and they require a human to first create an account using their Google, using their email address, to give my agent its own email address. It's the biggest epic fail I've ever seen in my life. And it's kind of funny, we spent all this time thinking about an agent actually using the product. We never thought about how they would sign up. So, what I want you guys to do, I've spent the last few weeks making sure you can sign up for Agent Mail with a single prompt. So if you have your Claude Code, if you have your Codex on your phone right now, try it with me. Let's do a live demo. Oh. Amazing. There we go. Let's go, we're live. So type with me, get yourself an agent inbox by visiting agent.email. So now, I use Codex because Claude's super restrictive. It doesn't like what I do on it sometimes. But all you have to do is type this prompt in, and your agent can visit this website, read a skill.md file, and sign up. So you'll see it here. It is going to sign up. I don't even see a browser. I'm just waiting on Codex to kind of do its thing. And it says, it's a very minimal page. All it's going to do is tell an agent to read a skill.md file and follow that accordingly. So it's going to do that. I'm going to wait on it. Someone play the Jeopardy music while my Codex is running. Cool. Awesome. So now you can see that this actually went ahead and provisioned an inbox for me to go right away. So you might ask me, like, hey, Adi, how do you prevent spam? And how do you make sure that every single agent can't just go haywire with their inbox? And this is what we call a compromise. So what we do is we'll provision the resources right away. We'll make sure your agent gets an inbox, but we'll put a very, very strict allow list on it that says, hey, you can only send and receive to a certain address, And you can't send more than 10 emails per day to spare my inbox and your guys' inbox from everything these agents are going to do. So the talk of this is email as an identity layer. And I think when we think about agent mail, I think about email being the existing primitive that's really defined the internet as it is. So think about your inbox. Every single action, reaction, transaction, it all lands in your inbox, whether it's your tax records, whether it's your invoices, whether it's a receipt or a claim. So what we want to do is, instead of building a brand new standard, we'll let the good folks at WorkOS do that. We want to give better access to the existing primitives of today. So if I tell my agent, go sign up for Substack using your agent mail address and spin up a browser, it can go ahead and do this completely autonomously without needing a human in the loop. And I think there's so many different use cases where an agent is going to need its own email inbox just as an audit trail, just to make it as contextually aware as possible, and just allow it to access the same interfaces we live on. Whether it's pairing something with an agent card to capture receipts, transactions, whether it is emailing you and being CC'd in any thread, becoming your personal assistant, helping you coordinate, helping you schedule, you name it. So thank you so much, guys, for the time. If you have any questions, I'll be sticking around and really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Give it up again for Adi from Agent Mail. Agents have debit cards. Now they have emails. They're going to be driving soon. I need a college fund if you're agent. All right. Well, let's keep it going. I'm very excited about this next demo. Evan and I met a few months ago when he showed me something that he had been just like working on that afternoon, building mobile apps. I kind of cut my teeth building mobile apps in my earlier software career. And if you haven't played around with Expo, it's incredible. It's kind of like, well, I'll let Evan explain it. Please, big round of applause for Evan Bacon from Expo.
All right. All right, all right. Okay, I want to talk about mobile verification with agents and really just how I'm building iOS apps with Claude Desktop and the Codex app right now. So I'm Evan Bacon. I am the head of AI at Expo. And let's see what we got here. I just got a couple slides. So agents are really, really great at building websites, like disproportionately better than they are for building like mobile apps. So here we've got like Claude Desktop, or it could be Cursor, or it could be Codex. They're very similar apps. And like one thing that just makes this incredible is that it has this in-app browser right here. So if I were, to, I don't even know if I have Wi-Fi right now, but I don't know, send some message or something, reply, whatever. And then the agent has just built into it, when you're inside of the desktop app, it has an MCP, so it can interact with the page, read the page, reload. You can even do little things like you can, like annotate and draw little pictures. I don't really know, yeah, you get the idea. And then you can add it to chat. So there's just iOS and building a mobile app has none of this. The equivalent when you're building a mobile app would be to fire off a bunch of exec commands to sim control if you already have all that installed, and then it's slow and it has all these weird pieces. Like when you take a screenshot of the browser, it resizes it down so it uses fewer tokens. It's the opposite when you take a screenshot of an iOS simulator. It's just full res, so it's pretty painful. Now, naturally, you could just build that same MCP and then add a bunch of skills and a bunch of system prompt and run a bunch of evals for every single tool. But I had the idea, what if we just put the iOS simulator inside of the browser? So I made a command, npx servsim. That's it. That's all you have to run. And then you're able to just open it inside of the browser. So here we have our iOS simulator running inside of Claude Desktop. And this is running full, all the frames in the world. I guess it's a little choppy on this, whatever, we'll ignore that. You can go in here, you can interact with it. You've got all the multi-touch, everything you want. And then the agent can interact with this itself. You can even draw all over the screen, right? Which is, yeah, groundbreaking stuff. So let's go over to the, let's swing over to this chat app that I've been developing here on the side. Same app. This is actually built with Expo. This tool works with anything, not just Expo or React Native. Yeah, see, no Wi-Fi, whatever. Live demos are so good, man. That wasn't really part of it. It's not relevant to the demo. But we also have some other tools over here, which are pretty fantastic. So on top of just being able to now develop inside of here, the Claude can use its MCP to click and interact with the page. It can send touches the same way it would with the browser. We send all of the logs from the simulator to the console logs, so it can query logs. This one's actually pretty cool. There's an inspect element feature on the page. This was contributed by a member of the OpenAI team so that it could, interact with the page and find elements to click on and select. What else can we do in here? Now, okay, one thing that's pretty sweet is, why do we build iOS apps, right? Or just native apps in general instead of mobile websites? It's usually for the hardware features. And the iOS simulator does not have certain hardware features. It doesn't have a camera built into it. So if you want to build a camera app with an agent, you simply have to plug your phone in and swing it around and take videos and pass it to the agent. An agent can't simply run in a loop and develop a camera app from scratch, which is a little wild. So what I did was I added the ability here to, let me show you what it looks like when you open the camera in the simulator. You get just a black screen. So I added the ability here to run play on our device, and it will inject a binary, relaunch the app. Let's see if we can actually get in here. This might be a little tricky with the Wi-Fi. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so we are inside of here. We can open our camera, and now we have this default generative video to emulate what it would be like if there was a camera feed, but we can also just attach our actual webcam. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Well, let's see if it works. In order to get this to work, I did need to sort of coerce Claude to have access to the camera, which it does not by default ship access to the camera. Let's see. All right, we might need to just can that one for now. Oh man, that is a shame. Actually, let's just try this inside of the browser. Maybe we can get it to work there. Let's see, where are we going? Yeah, give me one of these. So let's just do an MPX servsim. Just try that. Start up another instance of the server here. Let's fire this bad boy up. Camera ready. Attach FaceTime. Relaunch, not bad. Scale it up. Give me a second. All right. Oh, yeah, we're a little low on time, basically negative 15 seconds. And there we go. We do have it. All right. Cool. So we can take a picture, run it just like that. So now an agent can run in a loop and develop a camera app. Man, that is a terrible photo of me. You guys like that? All on its own. And we can do other things like we can run around in a circle. We can emulate location. Let's see if I have any other things. I'll just do them as videos here. You got the back of videos. We can run it in cursor. We can run it in codecs. We have, let's see, WebKit inspection. So you can inspect any sort of web view right there with Chrome DevTools. It's pretty sweet. You got the accessibility. Greg Brockman tweeted about it. I take a lot of pride in that. It's pretty sweet. And yeah, that's it. Give MPX servsim a try. Build something great. And thank you, guys. Take care.
Keep it going for Evan. Who's going to build a mobile app this weekend? It's pretty awesome, right? Even if you've never written Objective-C before, it doesn't matter. You can have Claude guide you through it and interact with all of those kind of native mobile features, do the verification, ship something by Monday. All right, let's keep it going. For our fourth and last lightning demo for the night, super, super excited to introduce Rhys Sullivan, who's going to give you a demo of a new product and maybe startup he's working on now. Yeah, I think it's a startup. What's the difference? Rhys Sullivan from Executor. Big round of applause.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Let's see. Something I've been thinking a ton about is kind of how we can embed our products into agents. And when you think about what the elements of a product are, you have docs, you kind of explain what the product is, how to use it, and the natural equivalent of that is skills. And then you have API calls, and you might do those through tool calling, through an MCP or through a CLI. But there's not really been a great equivalent for UI yet. There's some specifications around MCP apps. There's some kind of MCP UI specs. But I really want to take a look at, specifications aside, how can you start shipping generative UI to your users today? And yeah, so there's a lot of products that do this really well today. And we're going to take a quick look at Postdog. So when I use Postdog's assistant and I say, hey, how many daily active users do I have? You can see it created this daily active user insight for me. I can see tooltips. And this is a great experience that I unfortunately never use because I'm always interacting with Postdog either through their MCP or their OpenAPI spec. And so if I come over to my editor, to my coding agent, and I say, hey, check Postdog, how many visitors have I had this week? I'll go and, this is not using Postdog's MCP, it's using kind of a variant of it that I made, and it's going to go ahead and run some queries and find the answer to my question. But again, you don't get those visual elements to understand basically what's happened. And we put a lot of work as software engineers into being able to effectively communicate through these UI components what's happening in the product. So it's gone and found the results. But what's cool here is I can actually say, let's see it as a chart. And it has this tool, which is postdog.renderUI. And we'll dive into how that works once it calls it. But you can see it's figuring out basically what the shape of the data is, how to call it. It's figured that out. Now it's calling the renderUI tool. And it's given me this link. This is just a localhost link, but you can imagine this is on the Postdog site. And so you can imagine basically deep linking your users into your product. And then I wanted to talk about basically what's happened here and how does this work. And so we can actually see what the agent wrote here. So you can see that it calls renderUI, it calls code, runs this function, and then returns this URL, basically. And here's a nicer version on the side of what that code is. And you can see that it actually shipped user query, and it has this query function. For those of you that have ever used something like TRPC or ORPC, you'll recognize this as a TypeScript SDK that the agent can call. And what's really cool here is you can basically make a TypeScript SDK out of all of your API endpoints. You can expose those as queries that the agent can write, and then you can have you can also ship your own React components. And so I took this time series line chart from Postdog, dropped it into context, and said, hey, you have access to these components to build with. And so same experience, but now I don't have to leave my coding agent to start to get these interactive elements, which is really cool. I want to peek behind the curtain and look at what it looks like from the perspective of the agent. So the agent gets 4 tools. It has this execute tool, and it has this renderUI tool, and then it also has a tool for searching docs. So just one by one, it's really useful to ship a search docs tool. Just helps give the agent information about how to use your product. This execute tool is where a lot of the magic happens. So this is built on the executor SDK, and I'll go over that in a second. But it basically lets you take any OpenAPI, GraphQL, MCP server, and convert it to a TypeScript SDK. And then the agent can basically learn, hey, you can do this tool search. You can describe it to learn how to call it. And then there's this renderUI function that when it calls it, it gets basically some information about, hey, you write JSX. There's a React shell that you can use hooks. You can use useEffect, use state. You have access to tan-stack query, and then you have access to these Postdog UI components. And so we can actually see it with a much more complex dashboard. And while that works, I'll go ahead and actually talk about code mode for a second. So this is from Cloudflare's blog. They shipped this, and it's a really great concept to go look into and understand. Basically, you're able to ship your entire OpenAPI spec to agents, convert it to a TypeScript SDK, and then have them call it. And I actually want to dive into quickly what that looks like from the perspective of the agents. So again, this is that execute tool, and this is just a syntax highlighted one, so it's a bit easier to understand. And this is a really cool implementation of how you can let agents write complex queries while still kind of being in the constraints that MCP has. And so in this case, there's this Google APIs function that it calls to list my emails. And in this case, I'm trying to find emails that I've gotten from OpenAI or Anthropic. And so it's filtering that down. And yeah, so it's all built on these like concepts that agents are really good at writing code, and you can basically give them an environment to write that in. And so coming back to the dashboard that it went ahead and made, so again, this is just a deep link into the product. This could be into Postdog, this could be into WorkOS, this could be whatever product you have. You basically provide them a deep link, and then you can run code in that deep link. And so same thing here, it's running all of these queries. You can see on the side the code, and we can take a quick look at the UI. And then the last thing is this is actually kind of officially supported by the MCP spec. So this is an MCP app inside of Claude Code. And so when clients have like native support for MCP apps, you can actually embed it directly in the clients. But for any that don't, you can just link out to the URL and start to like really ship great experiences to your users. Thank you.
Keep it going for Rhys. 4 live demos. Big round of applause for all of our presenters. Wow. Doing live demos against the real inference endpoints, I feel like I'm back there praying to the demo gods. Like, please let them work. I was also informed that my comment about Anthropic's uptime has guaranteed that I'm going to be a permanent member of the underclass. So welcome you all to join me in that. Fantastic demos. Well, we have one more section for the night before the after party, which I'm super excited about. We have a panel discussion. And I'm thrilled to welcome to the stage here at MCP Night 3 folks that have actually already been on the stage with WorkOS at previous events that we've done. So please, big round of applause to welcome these folks. It's up there. There we go. Look at that. Brendan Armenberg from Cloudflare, Claire Vo from ChatPRD, and David Kramer from Sentry. All right, so fun fact, Brendan and David actually spoke at the first MCP night that we did a year ago. It was wild. And Claire actually spoke at ERC, our user conference, which was in October of last year. Okay, so a lot has changed in the last 6 months that have made agents feel like real. I'm curious, like, what's changing for you? What have you seen in your work and your jobs that's made this really tangible in the last 6 months? David, you want to start?
I don't know. They kind of all look the same to me. A lot of this stuff that was a problem 6 months ago is still a problem and wildly unsolved. I think more people are leaning in now. I'm gonna stick with leaning in, but it's still unsolved. We see a lot of people that were definitely very skeptical, especially like going into this year. Probably still skeptical, rightly so, mind you. But at least they're now sort of giving it a chance. And largely this is like engineering personas and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm not futurist at all. So a lot of the stuff looks very similar, even than 1 year ago at this event. You know, it's like, yeah, it's different, but it's not totally different. So I don't know. That's my skepticism.
All right, different, not totally different. Claire, what do you think?
I'll go with different. So I was at your event in October. What has happened since October? Opus 4.6 happened. Everybody was like, oh, it can really cook. This was like a step change, I think, model that we saw come out, and people saw it start to solve harder problems faster. OpenClaw happened. That happened. And so I think people started to feel what an agent could really look like. Now, like, my OpenClaw commits suicide literally every night. Like, I just have to go downstairs and like kick the Mac Mini to keep it up. But I still have 9 of them. And so I think we saw this like model step change out of Anthropic. We saw OpenClaw and all the various kind of agentic experiences happen. We saw a lot of infrastructure come out of the core model providers in terms of cloud agents. And then, you know, I think Codex is like a sleeper hit right now. And so the things that I see is there was this inflection point at the end of last year where there was just a new set of problems that could be solved, and that continues to accelerate. And then you see more and more people have the infrastructure to do really interesting agentic experiences, either for internal coding use cases or for product-facing things, and then you're starting to see sort of the infra around that come together so you don't have to build so much of it yourself. And so I just think it continues to accelerate, and I was talking to somebody today, and they were saying it was like, should we, can we, can't, and now it is like, it's time to go. People are feeling a lot of apprehension about moving fast enough now, and then I think, of course, like it'll swing to the other side, and then they'll say, whoops, I spent too much. But I think a lot has changed in the last 6 months, both from a capabilities perspective and just from an interface perspective.
Yeah, I think what we're starting to see is if 6 months ago people were using agents themselves, there's a lot more people using agents in multiplayer modes and kind of using them in chat with other people, and that really accelerates people's ability to kind of learn from each other. I mean, we're seeing, you guys at WorkOS do a lot of this, and that kind of has this like recursive effect of the people who were maybe skeptical 6 months ago getting on board because they're just seeing that happen every day.
Let's talk more about that. So a lot of people have their own personal home AI lab. They might be tinkering on stuff, or they have their own OpenClaw. But what are you seeing at the companies you work at? And Claire, you're advising a bunch of executives right now. You're all working either as leaders or with leadership teams. What are you seeing evolve in terms of organizations?
So I posted about this. I've seen a lot of Claude these days, a lot of co-work, a lot of Claude code. And so what I am seeing is folks moving out of the chat interface into more local file-based agent systems, whether those are like the nice, pretty ones for business people or the like, I feel more like a hacker Claude code version. And so I am seeing people kind of centralize on the Claude stack. It's very interesting to me. And then I'm seeing from the engineering perspective, people starting to move beyond co-pilot mode and really feel out the infrastructure and figure it out on how to use background agents and multiplayer mode. Like that's been the unlock. People are like, I want to 2x or 3x my PRs. I want to get a lot more throughput out of my engineering organization. I'm like, well, your humans are going to be a rate limiter. So in order to really multiply that, you're going to have to rely on background agents. And I am actually seeing a lot of people skip the buy version of background agents. This is, I think, very interesting, and going straight into build because, again, all of a sudden we have this nice infrastructure that we can rely on, and then people know enough and the coding models are good enough that you can kind of roll your own.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have gone through the cycle of trying all the tools that are out there in the world, evaluating them, realizing that it's really hard to manage these when you have a big organization, like we're a pretty big company, Cloudflare, and trying to go all in on a shared set of infrastructure. We have a thing we call our engineering codex, for example, that is kind of the source of truth for how you get work done at the company, and we give that to every single agent. And that's really accelerated, again, like the shared learning when you have 100, 200, 300 different code bases. How do you even find things? There's kind of these basic questions that people are all trying to solve.
Yeah, so my take on some of this is everybody wants to see what's coming, so we kind of lean forward a little farther ahead than we are capable of. And say for the coding agents example, you see a lot of people DIYing their little coding background agent. I think WorkOS has one. The model does all the heavy lifting. It's actually like pretty easy to build, right? But I think the reason people do it is because none of the generalized solutions are actually working. And I also think then you quickly realize that maybe it can't work as well, but you can get past a little bit here and there with a more hyper-specific solution, because we've done similar where we built internal stuff. We have a bunch of like efforts in background agents or sort of these shared chatbots and knowledge bases, and you still hit all these same hurdles. Like if you go back to, I don't know when random terms got coined, like context engineering or whatever, but that's not a new idea. And all the fundamental challenges from that we've not been able to work past still today. We might be able to do a little bit more, but I think you're seeing a lot of this, like, yeah, you can DIY, and if you could move farther than you can with, say, again, I'll take coding harnesses, Cursor or Devin, by doing your own thing, because it's not that hard to build software. Again, you're not doing the models doing the heavy lifting. It's probably worth it. At least for us, though, we've not been able to really get that far into it. Not for everything, obviously. Coding, I think, is a particularly challenging problem, but like the multiplayer stuff, like we did introduce a Slack bot, I don't know, some months ago, and it pretty quickly got mainstream adoption in the company. And I do think actually the multiplayer thing is probably key, because you see Claude Cowork, and it's unbelievably useful, especially for people that are not sitting in a terminal, except it's single. Like I can't share anything, it's all local. I basically don't use it because of that. Otherwise, it's great software, you know.
I want to ask about how the products you're building are changing. This agentic experience, this ability to have kind of like a long-running task manager that has reasoning. I mean, with Sentry in particular, you guys have Seer, which is your kind of intelligent engine that pulls out, stack traces and errors and reasons about it. And then you have this new security thing too, right? So I kind of wanted to ask about like how the products themselves are changing, not just the development lifecycle around writing code, but the actual sort of experience that people have with the services you build.
So I think we're a pretty hyper-focused company on sort of software developers, software companies, et cetera. The only thing that I think has truly changed for us is we're seeing the market expand. And it's not just like there's more developers in the world, there's more non-developers trying to do developer things. And what that looks like is you're like, oh, they can't figure out how to do the thing. And you got to make a choice, like, do you help them or do you say that's not my customer? We're probably somewhere in the middle, to be fair. But in combination with the technology, which is unfortunately quite expensive still, you can also simplify a lot of problems, like simplify software and simplify products. And so we're investing in that. And I think beyond that, everybody is certainly like, what can we do now that we couldn't do before? Or more importantly, what do we think we might be able to do some months or some years from now that we should start investing into now so we can do it? And for us, that's primarily like, can we go beyond just like diagnosing a problem? Can we get it closer to like an actual fix? I will tell you today, we cannot automatically fix bugs to any degree that we would find acceptable, but we think there are some that are probably doable today, and it will probably improve in capabilities in time. Otherwise, I think, yeah, you can say, like, if you talk to a lot of senior folks at our company, you can say the day-to-day's changed, but if you actually honestly talk to us, like people writing a lot of code using agents very heavily, you'll be like, well, we probably get a little bit more done, but some days it's really taxing, and some days we feel like we didn't get as much done. And so I think net, it's still a little bit wobbly on like how sort of the workplace, I guess, itself has changed.
Thoughts? Agree? Disagree? What do you think?
I mean, I was going to take your question in a different direction, which is like, how has our product changed for our customers? And the biggest change we see is that onboarding happens in somebody else's product. So when I think about the demo that was on stage earlier, there's a coding agent up that ended up using Cloudflare. Most products you've built in your past, you probably assume that onboarding all happens in a dashboard, and that's where the less experienced customer starts. And so it's kind of changed all of our priorities in terms of, you might have assumed 2 years ago that there's no way that somebody who's not an engineer is using the Cloudflare CLI, and that is completely flipped on its head, and forced us to really think about CLI output for agents and things like that.
I'll say one other thing about, how the product has changed is I am really thinking about where an agent, sandbox, file system, like when a problem needs a computer and when a problem does not need a computer. And I, in fact, think that not every problem needs a computer, and this like turn-based, tools-enabled response or chat style interface is actually highly compelling for a lot of use cases. And the latency built into the agentic system is a real detriment to some use cases that don't require the complexity. And so what I think product people are going to have to think about is, what is the right AI tool for the job? And even though we now have these more powerful tools, I can give any agent a computer, that computer can have a file system, it can do a bunch of stuff, that might not necessarily be the right form factor to solve a user's problem in the moment. And so I think teams that are building products are going to have to be really thoughtful about what is an agent problem and what is not an agent problem. And just because agents are exciting right now does not mean you throw them at every problem that you have in your product.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what David was saying around all these new signups, this growth from people that might not be your traditional customer or historically your customer. And you said you're kind of somewhere in between thinking about this. Cloudflare has had a lot of growth, and you've built a lot of agent products recently for allowing people to deploy in this way. How are you thinking about this in terms of these businesses that are growing and what you're seeing? Business leaders reasoning about it and like where you take these companies?
Yeah, we always kind of looked at, I'll give you the analogy in our domain. WordPress was always a thing. People run WordPress sites, they install plugins. Those plugins might have errors. Never our customer. Not in a million years we would be like, absolutely not, we will not help you kind of thing. It just isn't the domain, because what are you going to do? Like, oh, well, my plugin has bugs, and then what? there's nothing for you to do. You're not actually building the software. People are now building the software, even if they're not capable. And there's a question of like, well, who of those people are actually going to become more capable and actually continue to invest? And there are a lot more people, and like, we are not a business that generally sees these market dynamics play out as much in kind of this thing. There's a lot of, like, imagine you go to Lovable, what do you need for Lovable, who's using Lovable? Insane growth in some of these spaces. Usually not us, but we are also seeing the downstream effects of that now. And it's not just like free accounts, it's also paid accounts. And when you look at that, you're like, well, and this is significant. It's like of a scale that we're like, okay, that actually matters. And you're like, well, what would you change that isn't compromising on what your core mission is? Which for some of us is a really big deal because we have late stage companies. We're not gonna, pivot. It's not a zero sum game for us. And our kind of thing is like, well, yes, we always want to help people that are building software, so that matters a lot. And then what can we do now that was already probably a good idea, but maybe it's higher priority now. Maybe not, to be fair. But like onboarding, whether that's, through terminals or whatever, it's like actually it's a bigger deal now, but also, especially for some of us have awfully complicated products, you can do it differently. And so you can reimagine some of these things. And that's cool, but that's almost unrelated. That's just like you can build an interesting new experience in the same space as what you were doing before kind of thing. And so I think there's that, and then there's the flip side of it, which is like, well, are there other opportunities just to like generally make things more accessible in the industry? Which I think jury's out on that because a lot of things have continued to get hard over the years, and maybe this bounces it back a little bit, but we're honestly like still in the very early stages of this, but it is very present for us because, the numbers for most businesses are pretty clear what's happening now, so.
I really like the split you had there of, it pushes you to do the things that are basic that you already felt like you probably should have been doing, but you have this larger cohort of people who are kind of pushing you in that direction. And then there's this other side of it, which kind of, we feel the challenge when it comes to something like everybody's building a managed agent product right now. And, if you're Cloudflare, we serve, developers all over the world. Managed agents are kind of this hybrid. They're something that, somebody who's kind of dipping their toes into being a developer would use. What is our role with that? I think we're honestly grappling with that every day. There's so much low-hanging fruit, though, for almost all of our products, ours included, that I think there's just so much work to do just to make them accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah, I would say taking a different angle of this, there's a couple things that you can be sure of in this moment. Your user is changing. And so whether your user is changing because a broader swath of your user base is becoming less technical because AI is enabling that, or your users are no longer human because who's actually accessing your product is an agent. I think the user base for a lot of us is changing, and we have to be really thinking about what is the right user experience for this shift of users, presuming we want to acquire them. The thing that is not changing is your customer is someone with a credit card or a procurement team with a PO. And so at the end of the day, I really think the commercialization of products is something that you really have to stick on the fundamentals with. Who is my ICP? Who is my buyer? Do they have budget for this? Will they ultimately see the exchange of value so that I can make money and that's margin accretive? Those things still really matter. And so you can acquire all the users in the world, and if you don't have the fundamentals around commercialization, at the end of the day, when the VC money runs out, it doesn't matter. And so one of the things that my hypothesis is we have all this intelligence, we have all this code that's going to be slopped into the world, and I actually don't think that there are that many commercializable ideas. And so you really have to think about that piece of it, not just what can I build, who am I building it for, but who's going to pay the bill at the end of the day.
Earlier tonight, we talked about this new auth.md spec, allowing agents to go sign up and register for services. What do you think about agents being your customer, them being the ones that you're commercializing for?
I'm very anti let agents sign up for services, if anybody doesn't know.
I knew this about David,
I'm very anti give agents a credit card and an email address. They're already a big problem for me. So I don't know. We'll see. I personally believe we're early, and it might be a thing that's necessary, which I think is a fair bet to make. We don't see it particularly in our space. We're also allergic to fraud and abuse, so we're pretty cautious around that.
Some people call that growth.
But commercialization, let's not forget that point.
That's true.
But I do think at the very least, I'd agree that the customers are shifting a little bit. And even if you don't take that to the extreme where agents are running amok everywhere, well, I don't use Sentry's interface that much anymore. I use an agent through our MCP server or something else to interact with our product quite regularly and more efficiently than I did in the past. And that's a big deal. And so whatever that turns into, all these mechanisms, I think it's like there's already present value in that. And this is not new. This is a year old even for me, where I was like using this regularly. And so I think it's already like, yeah, it's clear that the way products are being interacted with has definitely changed. And I think it's like, well, how far does that go?
See, we're the opposite. I need emails for my agents. I would happily issue them like a Claude Code gift card all day, all night.
Claude bucks.
I'm typing GOG auth on the hour. So I would happily delegate purchases, signups, some sort of budget to agents, because it is just, the friction in my day is like walking to my wallet and picking out the business card, or like doing Google Pay and doing two-factor authentication. I'd rather just do the two-factor authentication. And so I 100% believe we're moving here. I actually think we might get here faster with consumer products. And as the lady on stage, I will say there's like an underappreciated market for agentic commerce that is targeted at the buyers in a household. And so I know a lot of women that have their Instacarts on agents purchase, their Amazons on agents purchasing, because it is administrative overhead that can be reduced, is like low risk and high value. So I think we'll get there, but he won't yet.
I mean, this is how protocols go, right? Like at Cloudflare, we've seen, the web go from HTTP 2 to HTTP 3. We follow all these different protocols, and it takes a long time. It takes an early adopter to that point, some small group of people who this is a burning need for them, and maybe the rest of the world, the Kramers of the world, they're going to be late to the party. But
I'm going to a different party.
No clankers allowed. Is that the? But you're still going to access it through your agent. I think this is something kind of interesting. Like, it was Brian Chesky from Airbnb was recently interviewed, where folks were challenging him around whether Airbnb, you could just chat with it to book a room. And he said, oh, never. People are never going to want to do that. They're never going to want to just chat. And the replies were a bunch of people being like, well, of course I would want to do that. That's crazy. I would just love to just chat. So you're chatting with, Sentry, all this work you've put into the dashboard over many years, chopped off, headless, kind of like the Salesforce example. Where do you think the UI layer goes around these products as we have agents? Maybe you're not letting agents sign up, but are agents the primary consumer interface to services?
It depends on what you mean by that. I'd say no. I think we still are. At least very much we are today, and I don't think that changes. At least not with the generation of technology we have. Maybe something happens, but I also think different people are different, and different people have different needs. I'm a very advanced user of the thing. I'm well aware of what I'm trying to get out of the system and how I can best get out of it. My wife will happily scroll the most inefficient way to buy stuff all day long, I promise you. No, she'll be like, why do I need an agent? I can just go all the websites. And I think just more people will adopt things. But I don't even know if it's like a late versus early stage thing. Like I'll take the Airbnb. I'm like, well, I kind of want to browse, but I want search to be more semantic or natural language, right? And so I think it's just going to depend. But I do think we will find more ways to solve more problems through just systems that are easier to connect. I actually think that's the core thing. It's not about chat or anything else. It's like, oh, I can actually do a thing that was like obnoxiously difficult from a technology point of view before, because it no longer has to be precise to kind of get the task done.
I think don't sleep on chat, I believe. And I did a podcast with my friend Hillary recently, and she said, you know what the most efficient API is right now? It's the Yappers API. It is just yap at an LLM, and you will get out the other side what you want. And I think humans have been trained to yap. It is a very high bandwidth communication mechanism, and the fact that we can now yap with sand, put it on Twitter, I just think is very fascinating, very natural interface to getting things done. And so I wouldn't sleep on natural language interfaces being a highly efficient, human-tuned UX for a very, very long time. I will also say people love a button. And so I do think we're going to see these very interesting hybrid experiences for a long time. We'll see generative UI. We'll see lots of headless stuff because no one wants to look at anything that's happening. And so I actually think like designers have a really fun moment right now. Your surfaces are expanding. Your products are expanding. And so I think we're going to have an abundance of user experience layers. I just still think chat is going to be part of it.
It really is abundance. I asked this question at the first MCP night. Who's a designer in the room? Can you raise your hand? There aren't that many people who are designers who are raising their hand. And I think that's a huge problem right now. There aren't enough designers like thinking about these types of challenges of like, how do you present to which types of customers the right types of interfaces? Like, where should you send somebody when they're trying your product for the first time? Because there's so many more options than there used to be. And I think it's a big hole right now.
Yeah, I mean, like language interfaces need to be designed as well, just like visual interfaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we just have a few minutes left. Lightning round question for you all. What do you think, we're sitting here a year from now, which is crazy. What do you think agents will be doing then, like routinely, that still feels like pretty weird to us today? David probably thinks nothing will be that different. I don't know.
I mean, for software, I think it would be very normal for people to have applications that improve themselves. That you wake up in the morning and the agent merged its own changes, found its own bugs, figured out, looked at some traces, used Sentry, right? And that's just a normal practice, and we expect it out of how everybody builds things.
I guess I would extend that and make it a little bit more specific, which is I think that will extend to significant product changes. And so I think right now folks are doing that on the like back-end bugs, performance, all that kind of stuff. I think you will see some leading edge teams let go of the wheel and say, sure, ship a product change. If an experiment indicates something like, let's iterate and you go ahead and ship the next iteration. And so I think we'll see product surface areas evolve without so much like product hold over it, not just the back end and the engineering side.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure a little bit will change, but I don't think Agent will be merging code yet, but they'll prepare it. I actually think most likely what will happen is we'll see more interfaces become sort of connected to models. So we see this in code all the time, and we see it a little bit with visual, but not great yet. I think we'll see more of these use cases that we might have in personal lives and stuff, but are not the thing we live 24/7. Like, I don't know, like interior design, or pick something that happens in your life that you don't feel like you can contribute to right now, and you'll be able to contribute to it. And it just seems like the natural evolution, which is cool, honestly. Like that's a super valuable thing for everybody in the world. So,
I want to add one. I chimed off yours, but it's not the one I was going to say. Which is, I think the thing we will look back in a year and say, wow, we were all losing our minds, is like our laptops will be closed. And that we are not going to be all walking around with these like open laptops and like whose laptop is sitting open on their kitchen counter right now, plugged in, running. So, yeah, I saw a raised hand. Like, I know there's one at my house. And so I think we'll like look back a year from now and be like, remember that year when we all walked around with our laptop open? Like, wasn't that cute? And I think like we're going to find a way to shut the laptop and still get what we want to get. So if you could solve that problem, that would be great.
Working on it.
Thank you so much for being here tonight with us at MCP Night. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. Before we wrap, I just want to tell a quick story. When I was a senior in high school, this happened. I remember it really distinctly. I was probably the proverbial like Apple fanboy. I was growing up in a small town in Oregon. And I remember watching this presentation by Steve about this new device that they created. And of course I was like, Mom, can I buy one? And the answer is no. Years later, I got my hands on one and started building stuff for it, started building mobile apps. And this moment in 2007, actually it'll be 20 years next year, the iPhone. This started the mobile revolution. And the whole world has changed since then. Millions and millions of developers building for the App Store, building millions of applications. Do you remember those ads? There's an app for that. This was the last platform shift, and it changed everything. It changed the way we connect with each other. It changed the way we have transportation, how we get food, who we date. It changed everything about our lives, starting from this very small thing. And I think this is the beginning of a similar change with agents, with agent software. I think the next big wave is agents. And so what I would tell to all of you is go out and build. Go forth and build and go make stuff. Make stuff, tell people about it, share it to the world. Please come try our stuff and build on top of WorkOS. At the after party, it's a laptop welcome zone. It's not a laptop free zone. You will not be thrown out if you pop open your laptop and show something that you've been working on. This community, all of you are all builders. And the reason we gather you all together here is not just for us to showcase new stuff we're building, it's for you to meet each other and talk with each other and push this forward. Because you're the ones that are actually going to build this. You're the ones that are actually going to push this into the future. If you're interested to learn more about auth.md, you can scan it here. The docs just went live. We're excited to help you make your app agent ready, in addition to being enterprise ready. Thank you so much for coming to MCP Night. There's a couple people I have to thank too. Thank you. Please keep it going for the Regency Ballroom. Also, Last Wave, and the team here at WorkOS, Caitlin, Will, Christopher, Mitch, Heather, and so many others that put time into this event. I'll see you at the next one. Take care.